You could see the legitimacy, if you will, of certain esoteric concepts. That there is legitimacy in these ancient pseudosciences, so-called pseudosciences, because you can see how their values could be related scientifically and really understood. And the moment that you brought those two forces together, you had the synthesis of our time. So, when the voice told me the neutrinos had mass, and I thought, yeah, sure. It was very odd. I was in Ibiza, and my son was having problems with his television. He called me up into his room, and I went up into his room, and I was fiddling around with the TV, and it happened to be on CNN. And as I got it to work, there was the announcement that they had just proven that neutrinos had mass. And it was a very odd moment for me, I must say. Part of it was relief, but most of it was manifester anger. A funny thing, I was really angry. I was really angry. Till this day, I don't really understand where that anger came from. But there was a real anger in me that they had actually proven it. I don't know why. Something about my own trip. But anyway, it was one of the funniest reactions I've ever had to stuff like that. I was angry. I don't know what the hell I was angry at. And I was getting the next day I was getting all these emails and people were sending me newspaper clippings, and I was walking around really pissed, in bad mood, I think most of it is, what took you so long? I walked around for whatever that was, 7 years, saying neutrinos had mass, and anyway. I want to go back to the 32 and the 54. Everything about the potential of this time is about both enlightenment and endarkenment. And what I mean by that is that this is the time in which the full spectrum of what is extreme must be seen. Very important for us, because that's what transformation is all about. In other words, transformation can only exist when we can actually see the whole spectrum. This moment of the 54, it means that there's opportunities for us to both explore both levels. One level is to explore the realm of light, and the other is to explore the realm of matter. Now, obviously, we can see those two things in both physical terms, and we can see them in mystical, spiritual terms. My trip for the 15 years that I've been a messenger is that my emphasis is on the form principle and on the endarkenment side. In other words, I'm an Aquarian teacher who's still in the Piscean age. And the Piscean age is thick with the light and the mysticism of the light. We've had nothing but several thousand years of all kinds of light. And light characters and light mythologies and light messiahs and, all of this stuff. The smell of angels for thousands of years. And that is an imbalance. It has been a spiritual imbalance in humanity. Spiritual imbalance. I'm not against the light. Never have been. As a matter of fact, I never could have done this job all of these years if I didn't have my fair share. However, the fact is that this vast imbalance is something that needed to be corrected. Most of the people in the early years of my contact and design, because human design was new and because nobody knew and it wasn't verified and so forth and so on, that most of the people that came, a majority of them in the very beginning, most of them had real problems. They had tried everything from gurus to therapies to whatever. Basically good people who were disturbed. And one of the things that human design immediately did for them was took away from them a burden of responsibility. That responsibility for being responsible for what you are, because the not self The not-self is a byproduct of everything and all things that are around it, distorting it. You know, whenever I think of the form principle, I recognize something so magical. It's very difficult for people to distance themselves from their life. It's very difficult for people to be impersonal about their life and the events in their life. Most human beings are extraordinarily serious about the most incredibly mundane things. They take it all very personal. Very personal. And most human beings, because they live in the not-self reality, they have a very poor sense of value in terms of who they are and their worth and so forth and so on. It's so obvious to me, that there is no choice. I mean, it's so obvious that the body is the life. It is so obvious. I mean, it's just obvious that the body is the life. And that only when you can be a passenger in here. And the passenger is passive. It's passive. It does not matter what I look like on the outside. On the inside, I have this passenger sitting in there, dispassionately watching the movie. And every once in a while, it notices that something is interesting. Most of the time, it doesn't. Most of the time, this vehicle is talking to somebody and the passenger is looking out another window. Most of the time, this vehicle is teaching and the passenger is asleep inside. Because the vehicle is just going blah, blah, blah. Oh, I know that experience. I have had drug experiences where people have said they've had conversations with me for an hour and I wasn't there. I can tell you I wasn't there. I don't know where the hell I was, but I wasn't there. It's just a machine. I love it. I do. I mean, I love what it is to be human. I like being in one of these things. I like it. Never really sort of enjoyed it in the beginning. I love it. It's so much fun. It's amazing what it does. And the moment that you're sitting back and you're watching that, because again, you have to see something. It's not just simply the time of transformation, because this time of transformation isn't for the ones who are coming. It's for us. It's our time that's coming to an end. You know, my job is not to open up the round for the Raves. They will never get a chance to even develop. You'll see, there won't be enough time. My job is to bring an end of the round for humans. For us to get to the point, finally to get to the point after 19,000 years or whatever, to finally get to the point where we can be in these vehicles the way we were intended to be in them. That we can fulfill our process. You know, that's, you are my species. The ones that are coming are not. They're not. They will have nothing to do with what I understand in the way in which I function, as you'll see. My concern is, that you get to complete the round. That you get to complete this human process. And if you don't get it now, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. The door closes in 2027. After that, the program doesn't really care about humans anymore. It cares about Raves. And all of the way in which the program operates is going to operate to their benefit and their development, because they're the viable mutation. And that we're on the road to extinction. And this is where it all closes. I can't stress how how final that is, and how important it is, and also for you to grasp, I guess, the most difficult thing. I'm not a missionary. I don't care who gets it. It's not up to me, and it's not in my control, and I don't take it personal anyway, so what does it matter? What I do know is that there's no end to hierarchies. What I do know is that everything operates on a fractal. What I do know is that when the door closes in 2027, that we're certainly not going to have the majority, let alone the vast majority. We're not even going to have a large minority of humans who can wake up. I mean, it's closing soon. It's 25 years. It's nothing. You know, all of those in my life who were involved in the dissemination of this knowledge in the world and getting this knowledge out, you know, this is the time. This is the time. You know, the next 25 years to reach as many human beings as possible, you know, to be able to give them that chance that they can operate according to their strategy and see what it's like to fulfill themselves. It's not about all the other things that come with this knowledge, because it doesn't interest me. Yeah, I know there's important things that go along with this knowledge at many levels in many different directions, but my real concern is that human beings have the chance to fulfill their process because it's all coming to an end. And if you don't honor your strategy, you're never going to get there. You're never going to get there. Never, never. There is no other way. None. And of course there's the joke. There's no choice. You know, of the tens of thousands of people that have been in my life now, oh, I know they all would like to be awake, but they're not. Just because you have a geometry doesn't mean you get the experience. If you're lucky, and you're on the fractal, and you're part of the hierarchy, chances are you may get to ride. You may get your 7 years, you may go through the process, you can get to the other side. I mean, in these 25 years, I care about turning on as many children as I can. You know, keeps it all rolling, keeps it all moving, and it's so much easier to awaken children, so at least there's going to be enough samples of awake human beings. The door will close. I mean, it'll close. You know, it's either something that is going to be there. It's not like it's going to go on and on and on, because they're going to use this knowledge for other things. Individual awakening will stop being important in 2027. No, it won't be, you know, one moment to the next. None of these things ever are. You know, there'll be a living generation that carries the pre-27, and until it dies out, it'll still be a vibration that's there. But basically at that point, it's going to come to an end, and this knowledge will be used differently, in a way that most of you wouldn't like anyway. Because it won't have to do with the whole emphasis being on you finding your authority in order to be awake within your illusion of separateness. No, it'll be used to bond you together with others into fixed groupings in order to be more efficient at survival on the material plane. And that the knowledge will be used to manipulate births and all kinds of things. It'll be used for all kinds of purposes. But the purpose of awakening, this is a door that's closing. You know, I'm retiring. Sort of. And it's kind of an inner joke for me with my passenger. Because, of course, you look out the window and you see, well, you know, if I, put in another 25 years, fat chance, I could get a lot more people to. Actually, it's not true. It's going to be precisely what it's going to be. I think that over the next 10 years, there's going to be a desperation burst of demand for this kind of information in order for people to get it. They won't know why. You can already see in the world this intense vibration for self-discovery and awakening. It's intense and it's everywhere. It doesn't matter what society you go to. It's all over the place. And it's part of this movement, this very, very powerful movement towards the closing of this opportunity. I want to show you something here. When you look up here, there are two themes that are expressed here, and these are the themes that have to do with the G-center and have to do with the monopole, the two crosses of the G-center, the vessel of love and the Sphinx. And that you can see that when the round comes to the end, you can see that the equinox will be once again in the vessel and in the Sphinx precisely. Now, there's something interesting. It's part of mystical knowledge that I've shared with people over the years, but it's not the kind of thing I ever wanted anybody to focus on because it becomes very confusing and easily confusing. There are people in every cycle, there are people in every epoch who carry certain energies. You have people, for example, who are people of the vessel and people who carry the vessel. Those are two different kinds of people. So, for example, let's say that in your design, your cross is the vessel of love. All right? That means that you're somebody that has that. But in order for that to operate properly, you have to be able to meet people of the vessel. And people of the vessel are people that are going to have, in our time, the configuration, the 30 and the 40 and the 9 and the 16. In other words, if you have the second gate, you have a strong relationship with people that have the 16th gate. If you have the first gate, you have a strong relationship with people who have the 9th gate. If you have the 7th gate, you have strong connections with people who have the 40th gate, and so forth and so on, the 13 with the 37. In other words, there are people who carry the actual imprint, and there are people who carry the equinox version of it, because everything's moving. Okay, this is actually where that vessel is today, in that sense, through the precession of the equinox. Remember, the wheel stays fixed. So we're watching this movement. So here we're looking at themes that are related to each other. Same thing with the Sphinx. Now remember, the Sphinx has to do with our direction as a totality. So you have those people who carry the Sphinx cross, but you also have those people, and those people who are the people of the Sphinx. Now let me give you an example of how that works. Let's look down here in this column. 10th gate is the gate of behavior. Now remember, we're looking at global cycles, so we're looking at a global theme of global behavior. In other words, the behavior of the totality as it applies to us at a physical level. And the whole thing about that is that you can see its relationship now, and that's only going to last until 2027, is the 61st gate. Now the 61st gate is inner truth. To find the inner truth of our behavior, and our behavior includes the inner truth of awakening, the 1020, the inner truth of perfected form, the 1057, the inner truth of being able to follow your own convictions, in other words, to be able to live as yourself in the world, now's the time to get it. So you get a teacher like me who has the sun, my design sun, in the 61-1. Here's the inner truth, here is the way it works. This is the thematic of the time, is to be able to explain the inner truth of that. The 15, for example, modesty is gate of extremes. That is, it is the gate of extremes within the context of the flow of the whole. And if you look at the flow of the whole, what you're looking for is the facts. 62nd gate. In other words, how does the whole life force, the 15-5 is all about the life force. 15-5 is the cell. What are the facts about the cell? What are the facts about cellular growth? What are the facts about this and that, and the genetics and everything else that goes with it? In other words, you can see that when we're talking about this theme of this cycle that we're in now, that we have specific things that we're involved in. For example, the 46, which is all about discovery, the potential to succeed or fail, that all of this is being governed by the 32. Here is a transformation that will allow us to succeed in another way. It's totally different. Remember, the 54 has a deep, deep mystical quality to it. The 32 is about, whether things are going, it's a theme of the fear of failure. So you have a failure theme that's there, and you have a fear of the failure of the body. It's one of the reasons why, we have had more and more violent weapons as we've moved through this cycle, until we finally can threaten our very existence. If you look at the 42 is about our whole growth process, our whole developmental process, and of course it is the development of the spirit. The true spirit, the spirit of the 25th gate, to really, the development of the spirit as a whole. That this is the place to go to, in terms of maturation, because the 42nd gate, format gate, is about a maturing process. In other words, we have larger themes that are at work, but not only that, those themes are related to two fixed structures. That is, they're related to the vessel of love and the sphinx that operate through the G center. And you can see, of course, that the moment that we move away, everything changes. If we look at the vessel, you can see, for example, that the 13th gate, which is, everything about the 13th gate is about secrets. And the 37th gate, which is the gate that is always asking the question, is there a God? The 37th gate in its mystical track as a bridge in the mystical way, here it's trying to find out all the secrets. And boy, are we getting them. And the secrets are for the tribe. It's part of the bargain. Everybody has a right to know the secrets. I'm one of the oldest black magician energies you'll ever meet. But black magicians never give away their secrets. They stop having power. I'm the most helpless, powerless creature on the planet. You lose all your power the moment you give it away. That's the whole point. Give away the secrets, give them to the tribe. And so what do you have? You have this sudden emergence of all these gurus and masters. The tribal bargain. I have the secret, I'm going to give it to you. And you can share it with your brothers and sisters. Amen. Okay. 7th gate, the role of how we're going to lead. And the role of how we're going to lead is that we're going to be very careful. Because the 40th gate is a gate of denial. And so we have a basic discomfort with those who claim leadership. And of course, that's one of the main themes of the last 250 years of political revolutions. Over and over and over again, the leader is basically disrespected. And we've had this growth of disrespect. So that starting, going back in the cycle to 1615, that's when we started to cut off the heads of kings. We started to get rid of them. We started to replace them. We started to take power away from them. In other words, there is this carefulness when it has to do with the role. Direction, first gate. And you can see in that you're dealing with the 9, and the direction is detail. 9th gate, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Detail, the taming power of the small. Every little thing counts. Man, our neutrinos small. 3 trillion in this space. 3 million, pardon me, in this space. They're small. This is the magic, so that in our era, we're able to go down deep into the substructure of how everything works, to see the little things, the tiny things. And that's our great creativity now. To be creative, because we can get to all the details. They mapped our geodome. They did it in 6 years. That's incredible. Talk about detail. 2nd gate is direction, and the direction is the 16, skills. So since 1615, the major theme for us is the development of our skills. And obviously that's something enormous. There, you know, the way to understand that is to see how many Smiths there are. You know, there was a time when you had to have a smith. You needed somebody to put shoes on your horses. There weren't that many variables of skills that were available. You can go back and look now in a telephone book and you can see the limitation of skills that existed when you got your names from a guild. You know, if everybody on this planet now had a last name based on what they do, you would see how skillful we've become. It is incredible. It's a standing joke in America about doctors. You know, you have doctors that'll only look after the big toe on your left foot. You know, you have this vast specialization of skills. So these themes are inherent. It's a global cycle. And the point is that when the cycle comes to a close, you know, when we get to 2027, it's gone. Those themes are gone. No more inner truth about awakening. No more facts about the way things really work. I mean, think about that. You know, I remember reading when I was a kid about the Dark Ages. Had a nice tone for me. I could see it all in shades of dark gray and black. You know, the Dark Ages. Oh, they're coming. The only difference about the Dark Age that's coming is that everything will look shiny. But it's still going to be a Dark Age. You know, in the same way that great thought was lost in our history until it was revived by what we call the Renaissance, at least here in Western society. That we're going to go into a period in which those themes of needing to find these things out don't matter anymore. And there is no escape from that because it's a program. You're suddenly going to get programmed at the global level by these different frequencies. It's not going to be there. That 61 isn't going to be there, and it isn't going to be hooking up to somebody else to create that byproduct. It's not going to be there. It's going to be replaced by a whole new subset. Many of you will be alive after 2027. And you will carry within you this cycle now. But when you're gone, you know, when the last one that was born before 2027 finally dies, you know, then that will really be the beginning of a time in which these things will simply not matter anymore. And we don't have much time left in the larger sense. See, this is the other side of Eden. You know, the mythology of the garden, the mythology of, you know, take a bite, and then go out there and figure it all out. And now we've done the go forth and multiply bit. I mean, we've been really good at go forth and multiply. And to seek out knowledge, this is the end game. I mean, this is the whole point. You know, the whole point was to multiply to a point that we could get to a point that we had enough we had enough total intelligence to be able to penetrate all the details that we needed to penetrate. See, we humans, we're going to become extinct. And soon. Oh, we'll keep ourselves alive. That's our magic. You know, we won't be able to produce children naturally, but we'll make them anyway. You know, you can't kill us off. Not that way. The great killer monkeys will not die off. You know, we will not go quietly into the night. We'll keep on making more and more babies. We'll genetically manipulate them. We'll work on making the last humans good models, whatever that may mean. But the reality is that this is the end. That we are in a time when the answers must be there, and you have to see that this is your time. It's the best incarnation you're ever going to have. You better recognize that. It's the only one that's giving you a chance to really be awake. It's the only one. You're never going to get another one, because that time is over. Unless you die tomorrow and you're a turnaround and you come back in a couple of months. Well, those things happen. Those things happen. But I really want to stress that for all of you, to really recognize this is the time. You know, you're correct in your pursuits in this era. You know, and this is really the time to be able to be transformed, because that's our theme. Okay, I'm going to take a break. 15 minutes. I'm going to try to give you a sense of what the cycle we're in actually means in terms of how it operates, and how it operates through each and every one of us. And something to recognize about the way in which mutation and the evolutionary process works is that one of the main themes to recognize is that different beings have different impacts at different times. My kind of design that's dominated by first lines could never have been a success during a second line lifetime. In other words, it never really would have had an opportunity to emerge, and to emerge successfully. In other words, certain human beings at certain times have certain value, and at other times simply do not, regardless of what their individual, unique specialness happens to be about. What I have up here is the two crosses thematically that are at work now in terms of the global cycle. What you see is the cross here, the cross of planning, the 3047, and you come down from the other end, the 9 down to the 16, and then you go to the other side and you go to the other relationship, and you have the 42 to the 32 and the 61 down to the 62. Now look, if you have any of those 8 gates, you are participating in this mutation now. And those gates have never had more value than they do now. Now, not necessarily, again, at a personal level, but the thing to recognize about the way in which the whole operates, because the whole operates differently, the program operates through the whole, not through individuals, is that all of the beings on this planet, who all carry aspects of any of these 8 gates, these are the forces right now that are at work, and they're driving the mutation that's taking place. And these very same combination of gates, these 8 gates, that when we get to 2027 and the theme changes, they all lose their distinct value. They go back to being whatever they are at a personal level. You know, they're activations within your design. But in terms of you actively participating in the program as a whole, the era that you're entering into, if you're losing this in that sense, you're not entering into an era where you're really going to feel like you're part of what's going on. You're just not. So, for example, we have a lot of 3740s in the world. Hey, the channel 4037, one of the 3 channels that is defined through opposition. So you have 4037s who are nodal, you have 4037s who are Sun-Earth configurations, you have 4037s that are made up by random activations. But the reality is that the 4037 is enormously common. Yet since 1615 until 2027, this is its time. And obviously since 1615, the birth of the nation state, the institutionalization of education, medicine, healthcare, sanitation, on and on and on and on and on, you can see the community values, bargains, all the constitutions that have been written since 1615, all the bargains that have been created, all the labor contracts that have been written, all the rights for human beings, the establishment of organizations like the United Nations, all of these things are a byproduct of the 4037, the channel of community. the channel of building the infrastructure of what becomes our civilizations. Building the communities, allowing the communities to function, and building the communities according to spiritual directions, with underlying themes of communities built around temples, whatever the current religion happens to be in whatever part of the world it is. All of it has become institutionalized. All of it has become a huge bargain. And that's the 4037. It's all a deal. You got all these people that are screaming and yelling in countries because they think that the government owes them something. You know, we got a bargain here. You know, you're supposed to be doing this and that, and they say you're supposed to be doing this and that, and we get rules and laws and all of those things. That's 4037 stuff. Hey, it's going away. It's going away. I had an experience years ago teaching in Spain. I was up in Basque Country. And I was in a mountain village. And it was one of the most beautiful, beautiful valleys I've seen in my life. Gorgeous place. And all through the valley on the hills were these magnificent old stone houses. And I love stone houses. They were all empty. I mean, they were all empty. You know, these were people whose children wanted to go to university and wanted to go to the big city, and they lived in a first world country now, and opportunities existed, and the old way of life disappeared, and all these magnificent houses on the side of this valley had trees bursting through their foundations, and all of this is going to come to an end. And you know, these themes of Big Brother and all of that, how funny that is. You know, because in fact, it's our theme. We're Big Brother. This is us. Look, if you're going to be a good killer monkey, you have to know where the kill is. You have to know how to kill it. You have to know how to get away with it. You have to know how to succeed from it. I mean, after all, it's what makes us so intelligent. Everything about being human is about controlling other humans. I mean, after all, humans have nothing to fear but other humans. It's true. I mean, that's us. It's really, really amazing. I mean, the only thing, other than those opportunities you may have to be in a jungle and be a possible breakfast for somebody, you know, the reality is that the only enemy that humans have are humans. So we try to organize them. And we try to organize them in such a way that we can eventually organize them so that they're nice. The equinox. The equinox is in the 37th gate, and it's in the first line. If you will, and it's only a loose analogy, this is the personality of our time. And the personality of our time, the mother-father. Friendship that is rooted in sensitivity and ensures harmony, and there's only an exaltation. It's one of 9 examples of lines that only have a single activation, that are a singularity, which is very rare. And it's Venusian. And it's one of my favorite things about the way in which symbols are distorted. The success of the Roman culture and the success of the Roman Godhead distorted many things. It started actually earlier. It started with Homer, and it started with Greek mythology, in which the power of the yin was robbed. That the power of the yin was taken away, that the yin could no longer be the great force, that the yang was coming into dominance, that the male gods were going to dominate, that the female gods were going to lose their power. And there was a movement that began in Western culture, a movement that began with the Greeks that really was brought to fruition by the Romans. Venus is the archetypal example. This idea of Venus as being a goddess of love, which I find a great black joke. You know, amongst the Maya in South America, they were ritual cannibalists, and they would do human sacrifices normally quarterly, and the poor of their communities were given the flesh. But those sacrifices only could take place when a certain star, quote unquote, rose in the sky. That happened to be Venus, not a star, but for them they called it a star. It was Venus. And when Venus would rise in the sky, then they would all start doing their killing, their mass killing and sacrificing of humans to feed other humans. When I think of Venus, I always think of Kali. I'm not fooled by the Roman patina. Oh yes, Venus very much can be a goddess of love. But then, I don't know if you'd want to be her lover. You know? The traditional value of Venus is values. And for me, in terms of the way in which I understand planetary values, the most important thing about Venus is that Venus in fact establishes the undocumented law. It takes Jupiter to turn law into stone, to play Moses. But when it comes to Venus, Venus actually creates the basis or the foundation upon which the laws will be made. Because it controls the very mores, the very morality of the way in which we deal with each other. And it's an enormously important role. And obviously in such a role, our values and our morality covers an incredible extreme. There are those who value the taking of life more than they value the giving. There's all kinds of things in the spectrum of the killer monkey. All kinds of things. And so, it's important to see that this attribute, which is only Venusian, is about friendship rooted in sensitivity. If you read the original line, it says, a position of inherent respect that ensures a focus for the development of guidelines. Harmony is the key to the successful maintenance of relationships, and it's only through harmony that the beauty and values of the family can endure. Well, harmony dictated by whom? It's a deal. It's in the bargain. The bargain is that we're going to find a way to be harmonious even though we're killer monkeys. And we're going to find a way of being harmonious because we're going to do the very best we can to be sensitive. The Bill of Rights. Let's be sensitive. The idiocy of all men. No women in that, by the way. All men created equal. Women were never created equal. Men obviously have been created equal, whatever that means. Now there are people walking around who carry the 37th gate in their design. How many of you here have the 37th gate? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 8. Okay. 10. All right. So we got 10 people here who carry the 37th gate. Now, let me explain something to you about the way this works. That 37th gate in your design, depending on the way in which it operates, that is it in a defined center, is it hooked up in the definition, blah, blah, blah. There's all these variations for it. But it's always there for you. But in terms of the way mutation operates, your 37th gate, that 37th gate is not going to operate in terms of the larger program unless you have a 13th gate or there's somebody in your life who has a 13th gate. Right? That's very different. Now, how many of you who have the 37th gate also have the 13th gate? 1. Okay, so the theme has been reduced. That's a mutative force. In that aspect. Because it's not dependent, she is not dependent on somebody else actually making that operate for the program. But the vast majority of you, the 9 of you, 90% of you, who have the 37th gate, that only becomes active in the larger sense when you're with the 13th gate. And what happens with this is that it creates unusual bonds. Because it's creating bonds that are actually doing something that you're not aware of. I mean, you're not aware of it. It's not like you become or fulfill that role. It becomes part of the general consciousness field. Neutrinos. There's a thinker, Rupert Sheldrake, wrote about the morphic field. Many, many people have tried to understand simultaneity, how information suddenly appears here and there, and so forth and so on. It's the most magnificent thing about the neutrino. And I guess it's our greatest limitation. These eyes lie, I mean, they do. None of us even see the same colors. We're deeply limited in the visual world that we perceive. Deeply, deeply, deeply limited. We have a very narrow band of information that we translate with these eyes. If 3 million neutrinos pass through every square inch, everywhere, all the time. Think about what that would be like if you could see it. I mean, if you could see a neutrino. The reality is you would see nothing. 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 It's like being in the heaviest snowstorm and you can't even see your nose. You wouldn't see anything. Nothing. We are the soup. Voice called all this data it gave me from the book of letters. Well, we're the alphabet in the alphabet soup. We're all in the soup. We're in the neutrino soup. It's so dense. It's incredible to imagine it. And it's all consciousness. It's all consciousness. Those of you who have ever had information about design of forms that I've given, and to understand that all forms receive their neutrino stream in different directions, other than the fact that insects are like us and they receive them vertical, but we're the only creatures that receive information both vertical and horizontal. That all different forms of life are receiving information at different angles from the neutrino system, from the neutrino soup, and it's all passing through everything. When you're somebody that's got the 37th gate and you're at the supermarket counter and the person behind you's got the 13th gate, the neutrino field is at work. And that combination is at work and it's disseminating out there into the neutrino environment. It's one of my most precious images for myself. And you have to be an egoist to have this kind of impression, but I have a big ego. From the moment that I was born, neutrinos have been penetrating me, changing me, informing me, yet I change them. They go through me and they're changed. And they carry the essence of me into space. Now the neutrino travels at less than the speed of light, but that is not slow. And those neutrinos that have moved through me have been moving in space for 54 years now, at near the speed of light, at about 180,000 miles a second for 54 years. I went long ago past the solar system. I touched the first star maybe 15 years ago. And that information is traveling in every single direction, in all directions, and it will travel forever. Informing the vehicle. Now, it's not the vanity of me, but think of consciousness on this planet. Think of every crystal of consciousness in every blade of grass, in every human being, in every ant, in every shrimp, in every spider, in everything, all of it. And all of it being penetrated instant by instant by instant by instant by instant by instant by this incredible moving consciousness field. See, I was told that the crystals of consciousness that are part of what we call the earth, that this is the design crystal of the whole. And we know, relatively speaking, what the design crystal is within us. It is the vehicle. That's why I teach you form. We are form consciousness. It is our body. You know, every Messiah has come down and said, this is my body. Yes! It is our body. And that information stream that goes out on the neutrino wave that is generated by all the consciousness that is here, it penetrates the whole vehicle. There's been life on this planet for over 2 billion years. 180,000 miles a second for 2 billion years. You're going to travel far. There isn't a corner in the nook and cranny of the entire cosmos that doesn't know we're alive here. It's the magic of the neutrino. You know, it's an informing agent. There's a wonderful thing. It's a great trivia question for a trivia night. Neutrinos are only made in stars, except right here. Started in Alamogordo, New Mexico, 1945, when they let off the first atomic bomb. And the neutrinos came pouring out. We make our own. We make our own. Only stars, the whole damn universe, only stars make neutrinos. We make neutrinos. It's our job to inform. Now, we're too stupid to be given that responsibility. You know, it's not like we decide what gets informed or how it gets informed. We have no idea, no way of understanding what the whole really is about. Our whole. The consciousness field that's here, that we're a part of, I have no idea. And it's not our fault. I mean, you know, I like to tease my dog that my dog doesn't have a neocortex. And, you know, basically she yawns and goes back to sleep. And, you know, when you compare us to the whole, I've been there. I mean, I've been there. The presence of the voice was a smell of intelligence that was horrifyingly frightening. For someone as arrogant as me, for somebody who really thought they were really smart, meet such a thing is to understand how pointless our intelligence is when it comes to trying to understand these things. We're not designed for it. You know, I'm in this box, and this brain will only go as far as it's allowed to within its nature. After all, if it wasn't for the voice, I sure as hell never would have figured any of this out. Not only that, I wouldn't have cared. We have no idea how intelligent the whole is, how extraordinary the consciousness field as a whole is. In this way, you get to see how you participate in that. Each and every one of us, in different ways, plays a part in how all of this works. And because all of it is far beyond our control, you can see why for so long human beings have been so messed up. You know, it's not like you can do anything about anything. After 15 years, I'm tired of telling people that. It's extraordinary to me how difficult it is for human beings to give up control. To really just give up control. Just let life be what it is. It's astonishing how frightened we are. I mean, this is the killer monkey in us, eh? We got these big fat brains, so we rationalize everything. Everything. But we're just nothing but fear. Soaked in it. 37th gate is a gate of fear. We're soaked in it. Afraid of what's going to happen to us, afraid of tomorrow, afraid of this, afraid of that, worried about this, worried about that. All you have to do is take a hotel room in any city, 2 stories up, sit in the window and watch people go by. And tell me that life isn't hell. It's a horror. Just to watch them. Their vibration, their energy, the way they move, the look in their faces. That's not a life. That's a trial. It's not a life. And how bored they are. How bored they are. How tired they are of doing things they don't want to do. Being something they don't want to be. I mean, it's incredible to watch. I used to be one of them. I didn't even know that there was anything wrong. I had no idea. I was just running along, doing my thing.